where are you from?
program.
I'm from a big town called Apex, North Carolina.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
he was very enthused about it. Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, you can pass it on to somebody who is.
I may go.
Okay, so told I have my card.
Sorry.
We can get it, we get it.
Yeah, I can send him your contact.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Sure, sure. No problem.
Hey, Randy, nice to see you.
I like dancing on the square. It's very fun.
Come on,
2 years next month.
Presence on the radio.
Yeah, see, I got a face for radio.
That's my job, that's my line.
I'm trying to get you over here.
Yes.
Did you ever run the area down east?
Yeah.
Do you? Okay.
We're ready.
Yeah, no,
Still on.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order. And if you would, please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
After forum, Councilmember Gray will be here next 30 minutes to an hour. We're going to proceed. Talking to our guests, Page.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, for joining us. We've got a pretty robust agenda for you. We've got some expertise that we've brought in. I'm going to turn it over. I'd like Joanna for you to introduce your team too, because we've got some new members maybe for council. So if you introduce your team and our guest speakers.
Okay, great, thanks. Well, good afternoon, everybody. To my immediate right is Colleen Moraes. Colleen is our Economic Development Manager for the department. And then next we have Bailey Robertson. Bailey is our Marketing Coordinator for the department. And then last but not least, our newest addition is Michelle Boyles. And Michelle is, her official title is Program Support Specialist, but she wears several hats for us, including Welcome Center Manager and merchandise and a lot of other stuff. So she's our all-around everything, do everything person. And then our guests and our facilitators today, two folks that I've known for a good while. We've all been in economic development for many years. Many years. So officially, Dan Parks is a instructor at ECU, and then Charles Hayes is a senior fellow at ECU. But in addition to that, they have a lot of other credentials that I won't bore you with today, but just to know that I've known these two gentlemen. Okay. I've known these two gentlemen for, I think, my entire career, so maybe 30 plus years. Dan has facilitated many other meetings and retreats and economic development programs I've been a part of. Charles Hayes is a recovered economic development practitioner like myself, and also is a past president of NCEDA, as I am. So again, you've got a wealth of knowledge in the room with these two gentlemen. So looking forward to their presentation today, Mr. Mayor and Council.
We've got set up in 3 blocks with breaks. We figure we need to feed you at some point too, so we'll do that. So the first block's about an hour, second block an hour, and then we finish out with a 2-hour block. So with that, Joanna, are you starting the presentation? Are we going here?
I'm going to turn it right over to Charles and Dan.
This is your director. Thank y'all for letting us be here today. We are very excited about this. We do these things around the state. When I retired from the previous position I had in 2016, one of the things that I noticed was that everywhere around the state, like you and everywhere, all the elected and volunteer leaders wanted to do the right thing for their community. They want concerning economic development. They wanted to make their community better. But so often, and I'm sure this is different, but so often the elected and volunteer leaders didn't really understand what economic development was and what its purpose was. And so we set about, Dan and I did with the ECU, to launch a program that would allow us to go around the state teaching, presenting what economic development is and what it is not. And we've done about, what, 34, 35 of these, I think. And I don't know what Dan does all these slides and I just talk, but, so I'll catch up with him sometime with that. But, a week ago yesterday, we did one of these programs in one of our rural counties in North Carolina. And this is only the second city we've done. We've done Lexington, North Carolina, now Apex. Typically we do counties. And I'll tell you something about it if I don't forget about that place we did a week ago. First, I'm old. I know I don't look it. It don't sound like it, but I am. I've done a lot of things. I've been a county manager. I've been an economic developer. I've been an instructor at community college system. I've owned my own business for 10 years. And recently I was the head of the Research Triangle Regional Partnership with the Regional Economic Development Program. And Shane reminded me that he used to produce a radio show I was on. He said, about my face, would you say, Shane?
I said your voice.
but I heard my faces, but how a good face for radio. But anyway, that was so I've done lots of things, and we're excited to be here. One of the things I'm doing now is not on that now is fascinating. I'm on a board of advisors of an AI company. And the name of the company is Ultrasim, ULTISIM. It focuses mainly on digital twins and those sorts of things, but it's an AI company. And when the founder asked me to come on the board, I said, "Why you want me? I don't know anything about AI." He said, "That's why." And so, so it really is fascinating. And so that's a whole different thing. Dan now, the Research Triangle Regional Partnership is a regional economic development organization that was started in the early 90s, mid 90s. And what it recognized was that economic development was regional. It wasn't just one place over the others. And so they set forth to do things. Anyway, we needed a strategy. And Dan was on the team to put together our first strategy that was of any note. And it was recognized by the United States Department of Commerce as the best regional economic development strategy in the nation. And Dan was the lead guy that did that. He is the best strategist of anywhere. We can have a contest and I'll win. But he really is good at what he does. He's among the best. And he's done private sector, government, the whole stuff. And this is just a little bit of our team. The Hayes Group Consulting is the one that does this. Hayes Group is owned by my wife, Jan Hayes, and she lets Dan and I work with her. But she is of some note also. Currently, she is chair of the Impact Committee on the North Carolina Community Foundation. She was 16 years on the Central Carolina Community College Board. She's a recent vice chair of the Rural Infrastructure Development Authority. She ran the United Way for 10 years in Lee County. And I'm probably missing out on a lot of things, but I know she's on the foundation of the community college now. And then the other one is Julian Philpott. Julian was a long-term lobbyist and chief legal counsel for Farm Bureau. So he knows everybody around the state, because every county in the state has a Farm Bureau office and all that. He's really good now. Bob Joyce is with us. He is a recently retired economic developer. We're a bunch of retired folks. We flunked retirement, so we just do stuff. But Bob was the developer of the year for NCEDA, North Carolina Economic Development Association, and he is one of the leading experts in economic development. So now what I want to do is, I think I met most of you, but I haven't. And I don't want you to go in that link, but I want you to tell me, hey, Sean, I didn't meet you. I want you to tell me who you are and something about you, but I want you to do it like this. Hello, I'm Marcus Aurelius, leaders of the armies of the North.
Well, I'm Sean Purvis, Deputy Town Manager, leader of the Performance and Strategy portfolio for a.
There you go.
Hello,
Economic.
hello, I'm Randy Bosberg. I am leader of town organization.
Shane Reese, co-leader of the Young Council freshman class.
I'm another co-leader, right?
Tom Gilbert, native Apex, co-leader of the Apex senior class.
Terry Maffey, Mayor Pro Tem, leader of Read Kids.
Ernest Egerman, leader of the council mid-senior class.
So, I'm co-leader of the town council freshman class. Which,
Reporting.
Yeah,
Okay,
hello, everybody.
all right.
I want to know who's in the room.
Okay, Joanna Helms, Charles, nice to meet you. Leader of the Economic Development Department.
Colleen Moraes, leader of small business and development recruitment retention in the town of Apex.
Bailey Robertson, leader of economic development marketing. I'm Michelle Boyles, leader of the town of Apex Welcome Center.
Chris Johnson, leader of transportation infrastructure development.
Hi, I'm Shannon Cox, leader of long range planning.
Hello, Marty Stone. I am the leader of operation and development.
Hi, I'm Demetria John. I am the leader of the community safety board. Lauren Bowie, leader of
Alan Coleman, leader of the town clerk office.
Thank y'all for that. I appreciate that. That helps Dan and I know, a little bit of something about what everybody is and what they're doing. As I said, the Economic Development Academy that was set is division. The Academy has two branches. One is what we're doing today, and the other one that can go, professional economic developers can go through the program, and if they're successful, they can end up being a North Carolina certified economic developer, which Colleen has done. She is, we started these programs and it's been very successful. But the mission is to demystify economic development for all. That's what we're trying to do. What is economic development? What is not? And the mission is to expand the knowledge of economic development and its dynamics to professional practitioners, government officials, community leaders, and citizens, so we can make better decisions statewide. And the value is grounding in what economic development is and what it is not. And the foundation for actionable planning. And a week ago yesterday, we went in a rural county. Your median household income is $144,500. That's the median household income. Place we were, which is an hour and a half from here, the median household income was $44,100. Your 70% of every adult that lives in Apex has at least a bachelor's degree. 70%. In the place we were, an hour and a half from here, it was 13.2%. So we teach in North Carolina in this big, wide array of things. When I was working with the Research Triangle Regional Partnership, of course, we had Apex and Raleigh and Durham and Chapel Hill and also Oxford and also some of the other places. So it was interesting. So it still is. But anyway. Upon completing this class, you will get a certificate that's suitable for framing. Any East Carolina graduates in here other than this lady? Well, I'm sorry for the rest of y'all. But anyway, you'll get a certificate suitable for framing when you finish it. And Dan, you're going to talk that session out.
Yeah.
Any questions about that part of it? Thank you.
Well, we're glad to be here this afternoon. Just a couple more words about Charles and how we got here. I was with NC State University for a number of years. NC State is not only a land grant university, but it's a university that prides itself on extending its resources to North Carolina. So it's a rich place. There are a lot of different initiatives. When Charles was CEO of the Research Triangle region, that region pioneered for North Carolina a lot of different economic development concepts, notably clusters of innovation, target industries, how we zero in on exactly what we need to support. So Charles had a vision that East Carolina picked up on, which was this academy. When I was at NC State, We tried to get it there, but different bureaucracies. But ECU really stepped up and said, we want to do this. And some of that was where they're located in Eastern North Carolina. But as Charles said, this has now become a statewide initiative. But one of the things that I admire about Charles' experience, when he was CEO of the Research Triangle region, which you're in, some of the most affluent places in the country and some of the most challenged places in the country, just within this region. We have Warren County, we have Franklin County, we have counties that border Virginia, and then we have the Triangle. So that diversity is something to work with. But today, this is about Apex and your place, your future. You see our session outcomes are pretty straightforward. You'll get some key terms and concepts. We want to focus on the economy and Apex. Notably, you see where it says external forces. We want to take a pause and really focus on these trends that are swirling around us faster than we can keep up with. My granddaughter is a freshman at UNC Wilmington, biochemistry. She was an honor student. She was very values driven. She'd go on hospice trips with her church, and she and her friends very much values and purpose driven to be young people. As they were applying to university, each one of them would, my wife and I would host gatherings for them. As they grew up, we got to know them. And we said, well, what's on your mind as you're about to enter college and university and think about your life going forward? And they said, well, we feel like the world is shifting under our feet. That young generation. And my granddaughter, as she's gotten through much of her freshman year, well, she's into her freshman year, she said she's not sure if what she's studying, how that's going to relate 4 years from now, 8 years from now. So this thing about key trends, future trends, macro trends, economic development trends, and how that might be important for us in Apex. We want to spend some time on that. We're also going to look at some potential strategies. We know that you have a strategic plan for the town. We've really looked at that. We really like how it's presented, by the way. So we'll make reference to that. But we're going to look at some potential strategies for economic development. In other words, what's working with economic development, but also what's needed for economic development. And this is not a lecture. We're actually going to put you in work some with your table partners. We'll get to the point where we say, let's look at these big trends. We want you to small group, larger group. So we'll have a couple of interludes for that. Our agenda, we're going to talk about place-based economic development. And that's what this is. This is about our place, our future. It's a formal discipline of study, place-based economic development. As Charles mentioned, what is economic development? What is it not? Is economic growth? Is economic development? Is economic competitiveness? There's different ways to look at economic development. We'll take those in turn. In a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to make some notes. I'm going to ask you what you're hearing in the community about economic development. What you're hearing friends, neighbors, and others say that their issues are. What are you hearing about their issues for economic development? And we're also going to ask you, what do you see as successes? So it's what are our challenges and what are our issues? What are some of our successes? And then Charles and I have prepared coming here. We've looked at some information, some data about Apex so we can really talk about the economic developments, economic dynamics in Apex as we get into it. I mentioned the future trends that could impact Apex. As we close out, I think after dinner, as we start to close out, we're going to look at how the office actually works, how the economic development practice actually works, how it works here in Apex. So that's our agenda. And then we will close out number 7, as I mentioned, what's working, what's needed. Now, the power of place. Now, remember, in a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to make some notes about what you're hearing about economic development issues in Apex. But this is about the power of place, place-based economic development, and the peak of good living. You know, I really like your logo. As I've looked at websites where your logo appears and it changes color, but it's sort of transparent, translucent. It's a nice image. And you have a nice tagline that many places do not have, by the way. Most places are struggling to find a tagline. And the peak of good living, that's a summary statement. It's almost a value proposition. Come here, this is the peak of good living. So it's about Apex, our place, our future. This notion of place-based economic development is rooted in the triple bottom line. Is that a familiar term? Triple bottom line? It's about an organization or a place that says we're not just about money, we're not just about profit. We're also about people, and we're about our community. We're about our society. So that's the basis of place-based economic development. And what it represents is a dedication on your part to improve the life and experience for residents, businesses, visitors, etc. So place-based economic development. We understand municipalities having done strategic planning for several, and we understand that, and this is in your plan as well, efficient, high-performing government, intergovernmental collaboration, livability, health and safety, infrastructure. Those are all strategic priorities for most municipalities. Tourism, culture, entertainment, whole arena of the creative economy. But then economic vitality is really a strategic priority for almost every place. And it is here in Apex, as you stated in your plan. What's the name of your plan again, by the way? It's the
Game plan.
yeah. Sorry. All right. Now, Charles is going to take us through a couple of slides. Then I'm going to ask you to make some notes in just a second.
Thank you, Dan. So what is economic development? There's a definition there, you see, and if you're in class, that's what you would be expected to get to put back. It's the process that influences growth and restructuring of an economy to enhance the economic and social well-being of a community. Okay, that's what economic development is. What we say is it's the creation of wealth or prosperity for a place. That's what we're trying to do. Not wealth for an individual, not wealth for a particular company, not wealth for anything, but a wealth for a place. That's what economic development is. And there are three ways to grow. Not only three ways. And of course, books have been written about all of this, lectures given and everything, but the three ways are, you can see what you don't have and you say, Joanna, get on the plane and go recruit it. Go get me one of those. I need that. Bring that here. So you recruit it. And that's what gets all the noise about economic development. That's what everybody talks about. And North Carolina is one of the leading states in the union and one of the leading places in the world that has done really well in recruiting industries. Started back when Luther Hodges was governor, they had something they called Hodges Raiders. They put them on people on an airline to fly them around the country looking for business. And North Carolina has offices now situated in several foreign countries that's just designed to do that. So recruiting. So if you don't have it, you go recruit it. The other way, you look around and say, wow, look what we've got. This is all really cool. So you put together the rules and regulations that would make that company or business stay and to expand. So you put together all of the things necessary, and that may go from everything with, I heard Governor Hunt talking to a company one day, and he didn't have the authority to do it, but they said, we need some graduates from your School of Engineering in this. Do you have that program? And he said, I'm not sure, but if we don't, we'll start it. So, but so you look at that, you provide industry what they need. And so, or maybe in some places, we need a stoplight. So whatever, you look at that, and now the business retention and expansion programs that everybody has, not everybody, but most economic development organizations have to work towards that. And the other way is you look and you see, well, let's create it. Let's put together a culture of failure. So that's what creativity is. You fail more times than you succeed. Let's put together a culture that says it's okay if we fail. Council on Entrepreneurial Development does that. First Flight Venture Center that's in here does that sort of stuff. But that's that culture. Pop up this and pop up startup this and everything. And those all three of those wax and wane in the importance of and certain communities have different things that they look at. But those are the three things. And so what Dan and I tell organizations such as Apex, if you want to do economic development, and if you have $100 to spend, where are you going to spend it? A third, 2/3, 1/3 not going to play in that space? What are you going to do? Those are decisions that you have to make. But that's it. There's only three ways. And there's nothing else. So that we see. Economic development, and we're real strong on this, and some people think we're crazy as economic developers, but it's not about growth. Economic development is not about economic growth. Sue is from China. When I was that one time years ago, there was three Chinese scholars that were at Duke University, and they'd been over here for 6 months, some sort of exchange thing or something. And during that 6 months, they traveled the United States, and they'd been to the West Coast, everywhere. And for some reason, they came through my office. I was anyway, must have been on that punch card or something to show up and do an exit interview before they went back to China. And so it was just the three of them and me. And I asked them, I said, you're all three well-traveled, educated young men that really are knowledgeable about lots of things. Is there anything that you learned during your 6 months here in the United States that surprised you? Is there anything you learned? And they said without hesitancy that what surprised them was that you could see the moon in the daytime. I said, well, I didn't know you could either, but it's something we just don't even think about. But they were all from Beijing, and Beijing was so polluted that they were 30-some years old. They never knew you could see the moon in the daytime. And so that was economic growth. And you can look at other places now. We as a country are not immune to that. In the 1970s, the Cuyahoga River outside of Cleveland, what happened to it? Caught on fire. So so that's not economic development. That is not creating wealth for a place. That's growth. GDP is increasing. Some people are getting very wealthy, but it's not economic development. Now, others may argue with us, Dan and I, about that, but they would be wrong. So, Dan, any questions about that? Now, you probably already knew what economic development was and what it is not, but now you even know more. And you know what anyway, so there you go.
Well, the thing about a place like Apex, it's really a balance, I guess, attention in terms of decisions that you all make as leaders. What do we want Apex to be? As we drove in here today, I hadn't been to Apex in years, and as I said to a couple of you, there's a vibe here when you come in town. It's the appearance of the place and how to safeguard that. I lived in Atlanta for several years, and the little towns that were their own charming little places were tidal waves by Atlanta's growth. And that can happen. But somehow you're close to the triangle of strong. And Apex has only been enhanced over the decades. So that notion of how we safeguard, still moving ahead, making those decisions. Now, Charles mentioned China. And I just want to say, there's a YouTube channel called China Business Today. I would encourage you, if you haven't looked at it, to take a look. China Business Today. Hosted by an American businessman who's been in China for 25 or 30 years. What's happening in China is a marvel. What's happening internally, how they're building their infrastructure, how they're focusing on particular sectors like technology. We all just need to be aware of that. Externally, China is partnering and developing in different parts of the world, Africa, South America. So it's really something for us to understand. But China Business Today, I would encourage you to look at that. Now I want to ask you to take a moment and put yourself in this scenario. Imagine you're attending a forum and folks are talking about economic development. They're raising issues about what they see in APEX, economic development issues. What would they say? Ask you if you would just make some notes. If you could just make some notes on your yellow pad, it'd be fine. This is just for you. But take about 3 or 4 minutes and just write down, what are you hearing people say across the community in terms of what they think is important about economic development, some of their hopes, dreams, some of their fears, some of the issues they don't like. What are you hearing? Take a few notes, we'll open it up. Folks still taking notes. Picking this up and probably still make notes as you hear others. I start over here with this side of the room and then we'll shift around. You guys have anything you'd like to voice in terms of what you're hearing as economic development issues? Started.
No. So I think a lot of the discussion is the recognition of the tremendous growth that's here. And so is it sustainable? And how are we protecting the small town character and small town?
Yeah, exactly what we're talking about.
Maybe I should, because you did a great job, because even better than I would. But all I was gonna say is, to your point about the tidal wave you just mentioned. So I'll add on or echo what Randy said, and I did add one more thing, is how to learn best practices from other municipalities, like for instance, those ones you mentioned outside of Atlanta, to keep Apex's character and community vibrant, even if some sort of tidal wave comes. And the other, I would say, is actually pretty specific, is how to recruit or incubate businesses that will plug in well with the potential children's hospital.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. So that's part of what you're hearing. Let's go back there. What are you guys hearing? This is kids' table, I guess, back there. What are you guys hearing? What are you hearing folks say? Anything else that you're hearing? Issues?
Wait a minute, I got an issue. Y'all go to cocktail parties, y'all go talk, y'all go to sports things, y'all go to this. Nobody ever says anything to you about Apex is growing too darn fast. I can't believe all this stuff. Well, I don't want to date or something. Well, I do want to date or something. Y'all don't hear any of that?
Yep.
Tell us about it.
Check. Check.
Basically, I said we don't have any traditional. Land costs.
Land costs.
Yeah.
Affordable housing.
We'll come in here and get finish this topic off. What you guys probably hear a lot. Let's come down here first. We'll finish up. What are you guys hearing in terms of when you talk with folks in the community economic development? What do you hear?
Affordable housing. The housing cost is skyrocketing during the years, and so many people, our town employees, our firefighters, police officers, they cannot afford to live where they serve.
You may have grown up here, but can you afford to live here?
Yes, some seniors, they said they might lose their house because of the property tax and
Anything else?
Yeah, I was just gonna add, actually I hear the opposite with regard to, they start to compare Apex to other places like Holly Springs. Like all these big announcements, why Holly Springs getting that weekend. I'm not sure.
It's like, Apex is the mattress store place.
Yes,
and
yes,
then
exactly.
all the food business goes on.
Yeah. And then what Lori talked about too. Some of the businesses that have been here, small businesses, they're like closing for different reasons, but just the state of business. Like we've had 14 years in Monto, Japanese, cool place to eat. Everybody's like up for it because they're closing down.
what's the reason for that place?
Landlord.
The rental, right?
Also kind of hear the kind of cynical view from the residents that we're just out of the tax dollars. Not so much about the community and then the benefit to the community, but it's tax income for us, I guess, as it's rewarding.
But as a touchdown, not enough land that's suitable for commercial development and tax. Some land we do have, our lanes. Water, sewer availability in certain parts. Part of it, just that election. Yes.
Related to that, the ecological impact, like so, the clearing of lands to make moving forward.
Finish up here, guys. Anything you haven't heard you'd like to add? Issues you're hearing?
Small business side is finding employees, especially for a retail restaurant, is again, the cost burden of living here. So finding the people who want to work those jobs, and then transportation, like public transportation, not really our issue, but it's affecting the business community, access to capital. Didn't know that Apex had a tourism development division. So,
Charles, you have a summary yet? Or
Y'all all real nice, but what you're hearing and what I heard that you were hearing is growth sustainable? We're growing like I don't know what, growing like weeds, but can we sustain it? What are the best practices? We don't seem to know what the best practices are. We need to look more at that. And how do we keep the character of Apex with all this growth? What's happening? Things are changing just so fast, and can't find capital to grow. Some of the businesses say land cost is terribly high. The infrastructure growth is outpacing the infrastructure. Have you seen the traffic recently? Cost of living is way too high. Can't even have the employees of the city afford to live here. And why does Holly Springs get all that growth anyway? And saying that, we're not keeping up with the growth. The infrastructure's not going. You can't find employees. What are we gonna do? And you better own a car if you can't drive, because there's no public transportation around here. So anyway, that's what I heard.
There's two big things we didn't hear, but in that, and maybe it comes out in what's working. Didn't hear anything about education. Didn't hear anything about healthcare. Most places we go, those are big issues. When I say big places, the rural places we go, those are issues. But that's not really an issue here. The education system and healthcare system, most people feel secure in that, you would say. Okay. Unless there's more.
You also didn't hear a lot about jobs. And I think we kind of are an anomaly in that space as well, that we have a lot of employment. Yeah. So when we hear, oh, we're going to bring 700 jobs, I mean, we always welcome jobs. It's like, oh, okay, great. In my opinion, I think we take jobs for granted.
Okay. Let's just shift mindset here for a bit. What we did at number one is what they say, what you're hearing. What would you say for economic development successes in APAC? Take a couple of minutes and we'll close out with it.
What are you looking for on this one? You're looking for specific factors that exist, or projects that are successful?
It could be projects, could be initiatives. It could be downtown development. It could be new restaurants opening, entertainment. Could be quality of life as well as business specific. Kinds of things show up in the media in terms of economic development. Economic development news, things like that.
I think the Children's Hospital is really the biggest news story. The Children's Hospital and the economic potential that has as an anchor to bring in other high quality economic growth.
Yeah. Important. Okay. Let's build on that. How about right here, guys? Anything you can point to? It's in the news. Sounds good.
Like tech campus. Broadly ready.
Yeah.
Ready to kind of develop for it.
Generally an atmosphere of growth. And that's, I know it goes both ways. People complain about growth, but I spent a lot of time in places like Henderson, Wilson, Rocky Mount, Roanoke Rapids. You know, these are places that would kill for problem growth. Yeah. And the fact that we have I think, a reputation for being a place where people want to be, not a place that people are fleeing from.
Yeah, we just spent a year-long project in Roanoke Rapids. And their big issue is how dilapidated, and this is well known, how dilapidated our place is. It just affects affects our whole well-being. Now, I think, but through the planning process, they now want to be known as the city of resilience. They want to rise because physically, there'll be a lot of investment to raise that level of, dilapidation. Other things, Mr. Mayor?
I'm gonna call it cookout, but that's probably not one. I was gonna point out, there was an announcement made years ago about the S line and that project being initiated here in Sanford, and those things. So I think that really brings attention to what is possible here. I think that was a big deal.
Any other successes that you hear about? Meeting, yes, sir.
Well, I think success starts before Meridian and all that. I think all the planning the town did ahead. If the town did not look at doing the infrastructure to put sewer in the Big Branch Basin, there would be no Meridian. There would be no Children's Hospital. There wouldn't be any of that. That 1,500 acres of land been sitting there for my entire career until the town made the decision a few years ago to move forward to actually put the infrastructure. That's my view.
I would argue it goes back even further to when because I had that on my list too, the infrastructure and the town supported that, but going back to the Western Waste Treatment Plant.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
And the site selection for that, helping to get to being in that partnership with Kerry.
So that's even better. Our partnership and what we have done now regionally to set ourselves up to have water and sewer availability. Partnerships that the leadership of this town did forming with Kerry many years ago. That's the other thing. Because we are, you can't have industry and economic growth without water and sewer.
Also with the peatway construction. Yeah, just infrastructure in general, but even roads as well.
I had it on my list too. We haven't really talked about the investments in downtown Apex and kind of preserving that town feel that we're known for, despite all the growth, we're kind of holding on to that piece of our heritage.
Yeah. Okay. Any other successes? Yes, sir.
Brag on some of the people in this room, but I would say our Launch Apex Small Business Incubator Program. At the very least, well, at most, it spins out and produces small businesses that will positively impact area. But I think just as important is folks who've been through that, enjoyed it, speak highly of it, and become ambassadors, not only for the program itself, but for the town and economic development.
It's keyword ambassador. Keyword. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna let Charles summarize just a second. What we always listen for and what we always look for as we're reading about a place. What are our defining characteristics? And what is it? The peak of what's the tagline?
Peak of competitiveness.
That's sort of ethos. But talk about how things developed, how good decisions were made in order for things to be developed. With a track that sat there for a long time, that becomes a defining characteristic. Our decision making can become a defining characteristic. It's not just the physical result, but how we make decisions can be that. But Charles,
what I heard is that what you hear is that you're all forward looking. You're all looking beyond what is now. You're talking about the Children's Hospital, how wonderful and how that's going to change and how it's going to be positive and impactful. And you can go, yeah, Holly Springs, you didn't get that. And you're going to say,
we did.
and you're going to say, you do say that growth is good, We've got to manage the growth, make sure it grows in the right way, but that which ceases to grow begins to die, which is Henderson and Roanoke Rapids and those places you just mentioned. And incidentally, next month we'll be doing this in Henderson. So that the S line looking forward. I mean, like, when do y'all think the S line will be built? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 5 years? Okay, I bet it. I bet it. But anyway, the point is, you're looking forward. I mean, that Children's Hospital is not coming for a number. It takes a long time to build all that. So that'll be in the future. The S line, that's in the future. So you're looking in the future. And in the past, you are also looking in the future. That's APEX. You made the decisions about infrastructure. You made decisions about other things that have allowed for this good growth. And you're partnering with other local governments. I think you heard mention Kerry. Didn't hear anybody mention you build an APEX in another county. You got growth going on in China. Well, okay, what sort of? I mean, that's partnership now. That's really amazing, and investment in downtown. I mean, you go to some of these places and you see. I mean, the downtowns are just they got but nobody goes. I say nobody, except for everything, but typically when Joanna and her team are recruiting, they don't say, "Well, show me your strip shopping center." I mean, they want to see you downtown. So, not the strip shopping centers are nice, but another way that the 3 ways to grow we mentioned, and one of the ways is through entrepreneurship and small business growth. And so you recognize that, and you're doing that, and it's creating, as Dan said, ambassadors, and that's great. So, y'all doing good so far. Don't mess up.
Well, there's clearly a lot to celebrate here. We'll certainly get to that notion of ambassadors and champions toward the end. We're going to let you take a stretch. We do have a PDF, the glossary of economics. It's about a 6-page document. We'll make sure you have that, Joanna, and you can distribute that as you see fit. But there's a lot of terms there that are sort of arcane. But they're part of economic development. Let's take a break. Maybe come back at 4:37. 4:37. Start back. When we come back, we want to look at what Charles and I have gleaned in terms of the economic dynamics in APEX. And we'll also take up this topic of all these trends swirling around us, like artificial intelligence. Yeah. What does it mean for APEX?
And with Dan said, what we've gleaned by looking at APEX, what we try to do is make the assumption that we don't know anything about APEX. And we're considering making maybe an investment somewhere, or maybe move our family somewhere here. So I go online, I look, what I see, what can I learn?
is up there. They're right. They're right. We don't get to pick up trash.
Yeah. All right, thank you, everyone. Back in session.
Needs you, Charles. Okay. A lot of times people don't come back after breaks. We appreciate that. Charles mentioned that on the way here, we really try to customize this time that we spend with you. There's some common threads about what economic development is, what it is not. There's some common principles. But since this is about Apex, we took a step back, and as Charles mentioned, we pretended that we were going to invest somehow in Apex. We were going to bring our business here, our family here. What could we learn about Apex on the way here to help us with that decision? Well, as we went on various websites, certainly the economic development website, the town website, we look at tourism, we look at certainly Wake County, we look at Research Triangle region, a number of different sources. But as I mentioned, this stands out. It's a nice logo. It's an effective tagline. That's attention getting. There's even a video link there as you'll get these slides, by the way, for those who want them. And there's a link that you've likely seen on basically welcome to Apex. It's very, very descriptive. But we start with that. We also understand a bit about the triangle location and the fact that Apex is not involved, but Apex can be its own place and so access the triangle, the research triangle. So that's a plus if we're thinking about the place we want to locate. So the location here is almost unparalleled, except for Greensboro, where I'm from. I think that's the best location in Apex. I'm just saying, Greensboro. Okay. We also look at, now this is real different. This is it really caught my attention. These accolades that Apex has received, it was sort of mind-boggling. Wow. And it's in descending date order. You know, the most recent one down to the one that was furthest away. But all those accolades with the number 10 best, the number 3 best, the number 1 boom town. Best place to live in America was one Time magazine, I think it was, Time Money magazine. This list is hard to match. I don't remember another place we've been in the 30-odd counties we've done and the municipalities where we work, where this combination of things could be said. I don't know, do you get much press about this? Is this uppermost in folks' mind that this is really a high-rated place? Yeah. Wow. So that caught our attention. Population growth is Charles, you want to talk about the way you've used about population?
You're growing. And as we said, managing that growth is something, but you know, you didn't have to grow. I mean, and so what caused you to grow? Why was it? Well, the Research Triangle, the three Research One universities in this close proximity, Raleigh and Durham, and just the triangle itself, you're part of that. And as I mentioned, Apex, Apex was on the major line of the Seaboard Airline Railroad. Seaboard Airline Railroad originated in Richmond, Virginia, and ended in Jacksonville, Florida. They had one line that went off that main, and that went to Portsmouth, Virginia, and that Portsmouth line came to the main line in North Carolina. And North Carolina that was a big railroad hub between Richmond and then Hamlet was one also, but Hamlet was larger. But anyway, so that's where it came. So at that time, what Apex was known for, Apex was the highest point on that rail line. Everybody knows that. And everybody here knows that. But But North Carolina was, what I'm trying to say, North Carolina was more of a player in that economy than Apex was. In 1950, the population was the same. But both Apex and North Carolina had about 1,000 people. Now North Carolina has about 1,000 people. It's true. And and Henderson looks good to them. And I'm from North Carolina. But anyway, so growth. And so how you manage that growth. And then Dan mentioned earlier that the tidal wave was swept over Atlanta. I mean, everybody knows that, and everybody sees that. And used to say when Delta, that was the only hub around, said if you want to go to hell, you got to go through Atlanta first. So, but everybody went, that's just what happened. So the growth there and the population growth, and we see our state now has almost 11 million people, or maybe a little over 11 million people. We'll soon be in the 8th or 9th largest state in the union. It's growing, and where is it growing? Well, you can pick the places, y'all all know them, but Apex is one of them, and it's and how you grow and how you continue to grow will be interesting.
And it's robust. I mean, you're approaching 100,000. So that's a robust.
Like the 12th or 13th largest city in North Carolina.
Yeah. Wow. The other thing that strikes us is that this is a very highly rated education system, as far as we can tell. And that's important. That's one of the drawbacks in many places. But it seems like here, there's been a concerted effort to really grow the education system. And of course, as we're sitting close to the big research universities and others, but the public school system, the private charter school system, higher education, it's pretty much here. So that's a definite plus. Talent and workforce is the number one issue in economic development these days. It's either the lack of talent for the jobs we have open, lack of skilled talent, or we don't have any jobs for the people who want to work. But building the right talent and aligning that talent with the likely industries that are going to grow here, that's a part of the strategy. How do we really build that talent, make opportunity for folks, and take advantage of those high growing sectors? And we'll look at those. What we're seeing here is alignment of demographics that say, there's an abundance of talent here in Apex.
I've got a question. Does everybody know what it means to be a right to work state? I had a North Carolina sitting senator stand me down one day and told me that a right to work state, that we ought not be a right to work state. That a right to work state meant that you could not join a union. I said, well, that's not so. That's not so. So a right to work state means you have a choice. A company can't say the only way you can come to work to this company is if you do join a union. And we're a right to work state. And that's a really, really big plus. And anyway, so I want to make sure it wasn't confusing. And we checked with this around it. She stood me down and said I was wrong. I said, well, Senator, I don't know what to say, except you're wrong.
It's always a good counter. Bill's friends. But I know you guys, this is a lot of your work. Anticipating where growth's going to occur. What kinds of technologies, what kinds of industries that we can target. And I'm sure you work a lot with community college and others to really ensure that there's an abundance of workforce talent here. Now tell me about this. This caught my attention. What does Apex mean to you? Tell me about this, Joanne.
The question or the Think Apex?
Yeah.
Okay. What does Apex mean to you?
Well, how did it originate?
Okay.
And how does it manifest today?
Okay. So 2014-ish, had a town council person that wanted folks to, and everything they did, she wanted them to think Apex, whether it was purchasing product, going out to eat, your neighbors, whatever that might be, think of Apex first. And so there originally the initiative was going to be about business, but then it morphed into more identifying community heroes and then also a day of service. So we actually have two initiatives for Think Apex now, which is again identifying and awarding different community heroes, whether they are a business or an individual or a youth or a nonprofit. That's our Think Apex Awards. Those are awarded by town council, but they're voted on by past winners. And then the Think Apex Day is a day of service that volunteers can do lots of different productive things in the community, whether it's painting equipment at a park or drawing pictures for folks in a nursing home.
People really have responded to this.
Mm-hmm. It's got so large. Thank goodness I got to give it away to CDNC because it was two from my department. So our Community Development and Neighborhood Connections Department now oversees that.
It's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Always looking for those ways to communicate, connect, talk more about that. That's really good. Now, we always look for any kind of news that we might find. Some of this you've already mentioned, like the radio development. We just kind of go online and say, okay, are there news items that Apex is posting? And we see radio, we see there's infrastructure improvements around the CSX line. There's radio infrastructure as well as Peak Plan 2055. So you guys are probably familiar with these initiatives. If you're not, you should be. But it's interesting to a business like us. If I'm thinking a business, my family, these are, again, strong, robust developments. You look for that. So just be mindful of what goes in the news. I know you are, but people are looking. Now we're going to shift. We're going to talk about future trends. We've looked at kind of what's now in Apex, the dynamic, they're strong. But we want to look at the future. And this happens to be my ancestors in Guilford County. And one of them is quite skeptical of the Book of Matches. He's not sure that's going to be a thing. But he was wrong. Not the person in my family to be wrong. So that's a future trends symposium. Now, everybody needs a favorite philosopher. Charles is my favorite philosopher, Yogi Berra. Not Yogi Bear for the younger folks. Yogi Berra, catcher for the New York Yankees. Yogi said, the future ain't what it used to be. Well, he's never been more right. And he also said, predictions are hard, especially when they're about the future. Yogi's right twice. Yogi comes back again. But as we think about the future, what we're hearing today is a lot of automation, robotics, artificial intelligence. This cartoon says all the humans are out sick today. They call it flu season. Meanwhile, the robots are working. And I like this one. That's crazy. My parents are vacuum cleaners too. So we're moving into a brave new world when it comes to these things. We're going to take this on as a kind of pattern. And Alan, I need your help distributing some pages here. We're going to look at an analysis. Every manufacturing company that I've worked with, they look at this analysis. They call it PESTLE, but it's the same thing as STEEP. These macro trends, and we'll have a little cheat sheet on this in a moment. These are moving very fast around us. S for social, and then technological, economic, ecological, political. We want to really look at these trends in a moment, how they might affect Apex. So that acronym STEEP. Now, as we work a lot with manufacturing and we work a lot in places where they're trying to attract manufacturing, retain manufacturing, the reality is there are less jobs. Manufacturing is yielding less jobs than we ever thought it would. That also extends to distribution places like Amazon, where we work to attract that facility or that industrial company. And the projection is 500 jobs. Well, 3 years later, it's 200 jobs because of automation, robotics, etc. So this notion of smart factories is also lights out factories, which means there'd be a little human interaction in those factories. The major trend, certainly a major trend, as I mentioned earlier, in China, This is a major trend with us. We've moved a long way from the industrial revolution on through the digital and analog revolution. So when we think about future jobs and making choices on what we're trying to attract, this is an element. What will be there in terms of manufacturing, distribution, and the like. Now, you've just been handed, I think Alan has, well, we try not to say pass out. He's distributed a page. And this is a little cheat sheet. This is a bulleted definition, and I'm going to ask you to work with this in a moment on behalf of APEC. If we look at the social, there's changing attitudes toward, I've got yellow highlighted, changing attitudes toward work and leisure. As I read research on the younger generation, and they're starting to, they're in the workplace, they're starting to come into the workplace, their attitudes, younger folks' attitudes toward the balance of work and life is more important. Deloitte did a study in 2025 and of millennials and Gen X, which is not the youngest of generations. But what they found in that study was how important purpose, the idea of purpose is. If you look at a list of preferences, purpose actually is higher than paycheck on the list of preferences. So kind of hopeful in a way. The fact that people are driven toward purpose and value. So it's a social trend. Also, social media is its own trend. And that actually ties into technology. These are not isolated. So the social trends tie into the technology trend. And under technology, it's amazing the pace of change. It's amazing when we talk about building a data storage warehouse and the controversy around that. These are things we haven't faced until now. But the impact of AI is so pervasive, especially for economic development. Because what we're about in economic development is certainly jobs. It's also quality of life, quality of place. But it's largely about where and how we're going to make a living. And artificial intelligence, AI, is a whole body of work, whole body of study as we look at economic development. Under economic, there's those issues of inflation, which right now we're really experiencing, distribution of economic growth and income, disposable income. Those are issues, prompts for economic major trends. Under ecological, and several of you have mentioned that in Apex, you pay attention to the ecological. I think you were talking about, if there's somebody, one of you was talking about, if there's a development, people have expressed questions about, well, how's that going to, is that going to harm something? Is it going to be a problem for our ecology or our environment? It kind of borders into the political because we don't all agree about climate change. We don't all agree about climate change. You look at data, you look at science, but it's out there. It's an issue. This notion of sustainability is a big issue. The whole green energy sector is growing. It's growing more in other places actually than here in the United States, but it's growing. And I think if you're an investor, you're going to look there. The political, to round this out, it is about the dominant political party of the moment, but it's also about the dominant political viewpoint of the moment. And we just have to be aware of it. One of the great things Charles and I have experienced in doing these kind of seminars is we work with a county. You have a county commission and they're divided, Republicans and Democrats. What we found is our place, our future is common bond. Republicans, Democrats, independents. It's a good thing. Economic development can be common bond. It can create dialogue with people who don't always like each other or talk with each other. So that part has been really, really rich. So you have your page. Al, I'm going to ask your help with the video. About a 5-minute video. It's entitled, Did You Know? The sound is not essential. It's just sort of background sound. These videos have been produced for almost 20 years. And they're updated every year, started in Boulder, Colorado. But just make some notes, if you would, in terms of implications for Apex as we watch it. Go ahead, Al. Think about. Shift back to the slides and the next handout when you're ready. Okay. It's like my granddaughter said, the world is shifting beneath our feet in a number of ways. But what stood out to any of you in terms of implications for us, implications for our place, our future? Anything stand out?
Happens quicker every day.
Quicker every day, no question. And change in ways we couldn't have predicted.
So much of it is technology, focused in technology.
Yeah. You say the world is?
So a lot of the change in the growth, right? And so if we think of our future, 20, 30 years down the road, and how it needs to prepare for it, right? Technology, not only in the way that we work amongst ourselves, interact with our residents, but also like the kind of economic development that's going to come our way is probably going to be heavily led towards technology development.
Gotcha. Anything else?
More data centers.
Well,
AI.
that's a physical manifestation of it.
AI always, will outperform human. And lots of jobs will be replaced by AI.
And the jobs that we didn't know would exist, just a few years ago. So we just have to stay on the forefront of that. Anything else in terms of APEC?
I would say the point about hybrid work being here to stay has quite a nice implication. Problems, less often it's done.
Say that again.
I would say the point about hybrid work being here has like land use implications about what we don't it's not pretty things from here. Use them much more for that.
Extension of that to more long-term, less immediate than the hybrid work, but autonomous vehicles. If we talk about impacting transportation spending, infrastructure, what all that looks like.
Well, this is talking about trend. And so you have a long-range planning person over here. What do you think? Are you looking at stuff like that, a long-range plan?
Right now, we're actually working with the School of Government readiness that looks at some of these major trends. So, yes.
APEX has a history of looking ahead, of making decisions that will leap you forward in the future. And so it's, as you said, it's changing and it's quicker. What example I use a lot is that when the automobile was invented, it put the buggy whip manufacturers out of business 50 years later. So now something's invented and maybe you got 5 months. I mean, it's just the speed is just unbelievable. And so how you adapt to that, what does that mean for APEX? And then that's huge implications. It used to be when I was in high school, you could drop out of high school at age 16 and go to the local textile mill and be fully trained within 1 day to make enough money to buy a house, buy a car, provide for your family, and you can't do that today. So education and what's the trends there? What is our anyway? So lots of things, and it's exciting times. So y'all gonna fix that.
Well, in the time we have, we at least want to put a jump start our thinking about this. You have a little sheet that Alan has passed that kind of looks like this, and we'd like you to give some thought to it. Looks like this. Got it. And maybe the three of you could work together. Three of you. You may not like each other, but you can work together. And if the three of you could work together, three brings the nice number. We only work with groups of three. Somebody has, you three can work together. You three can work together. You three can work together. You three can work. Isn't that something?
Yes.
Groups, if it's a group other than that, we can't work with them. So groups of threes. What we would, and what would be helpful to do, start wherever you like. You do not have to take this in order. If you want to start with political, or if you want to start with economic, start there. But as it says in the suggested instruction up here, with your table card, list issues on the worksheet, evaluate their potential impact on APEX. Sometimes they're positive or negative. You might indicate that if you choose. But if the three of you working together, likely somebody is the primary trial. And we're going to ask for a short report out as we close out this session. So go ahead and get started with your table partners. Refer to the steps up here. We'll circulate if you have any questions. And I think in about 10 minutes is about all we have. So I want to see. So pick one specific one.
No, yeah. It's great. He's already got some notes.
Like I told you, we were supposed to take notes.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we're doing this one.
So. Based on the videos. How about,
Yes.
She said they're taking them.
I think I'm sure.
That's an easy one.
The other one I had was
Social isolation. Yeah.
Implications.
I kind of put those into the balance.
You just copy paste.
Now it's taking us.
I feel like.
I think demands for is also a social regulation. Demands for mobility. As a job. Well, just to get around. I don't know, something to complain about. Yeah, maybe, yeah. Yeah. Right.
Infrastructure to me is,
I think we, our best try to level with it, but never seem to get up.
social, you want to jump to. Get one of these ways. All right.
Yeah, but if you don't have it, if you criticize for not having it, so it's like, it gets used. And I think. Yeah, so. Do you want to move on to the technology? That one here?
Let's do I think, you know, And there.
We're focused on vacations. Basically, that's, that is why there's some things. Yes, okay. Now they realize. Yeah.
I just saw a spot.
Yes.
It's gonna be really hard with looking back.
I think you.
Run into coffee shop.
Chairs, I should say. Oh, chairs, because there's good. Just, yeah. That's what I said, that's patient there is just mental health, yes, mental health.
Restriction.
Well, there's also ways to.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
Infrastructure preservation.
Even though a lot of that's county service.
Yeah, but-
Yeah.
And they see those things economically, like economic.
So, one thing, two things are.
Just got it.
Take another minute or so, please, and you're gonna have to start pulling this in summary form. Another minute or so.
So I guess in the job.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, hybrid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, state government not passing the budget.
Given that we kind of have a time infiltration.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I don't want to make progress. I don't want.
And you don't think that.
Okay, we have a volunteer. We can volunteer to start.
I think now, right, now I'm like.
The slide is what's important. The slide is what's important. I've heard wondrous tales of what dinner's gonna be. Heard cookout along the way, I don't know. But we may not have time to hear everything, but we want to hear the highlights. This group has offered to go first, and Charles, you can help the rest of the room. If you guys wouldn't mind sharing some of the highlights that you came up with in your work together.
So one of the highlights that we had was a trend in the political realm, talking about government instability. With the way that currently we as a county do not rely upon our federal and state partners, provide grants and funding and things like that, in the same way that we were. So we find ourselves looking to and trying to figure out how we can maintain regional, multi-governmental partnerships with, say, our county or local other municipalities in order to help fill that gap and create alliances. That way we can find ways to get that funding outside of ourselves, or maybe combine forces in order to get to the needs that we want to make. And that also kind of extended over to the environmental trends, where we're seeing more and more rollback in terms of environmental regulations. And the impact on us is we want to maintain our status as being in the forefront of environmental protection and environmental stewardship. So we find ourselves needing to, once again, look at some of these regional alliances and looking at different sort of partnerships, because a lot of the grants and the funding and, maybe even some of the regulatory backbone that we were looking for at the federal and state level have been rolled back, meaning that we may be stepping into that breach a little bit. So
That's excellent, I think. And I don't know if it's a trend or not, but it's what's happening now. It appears to be a trend, what you all have come up with. A good example right here in the triangle is that about $300 million that we've lost in research dollars. $300 million. So what does that mean? For each $1 million, there are 9 to 12 direct jobs, not indirect, direct jobs. So we just lost 30,000 jobs in the research triangle region. 30,000 jobs, they're gone. Unless you put together some sort of collaborative approach to do this, to get the money to keep flowing, because that's gone right now. Think about that. I mean, you think it's no news. Leave it with me. Anyway. On a high note, what we got here?
Yep.
I get the big one. Okay.
We got so many good ideas.
One of the things that's more in the social class that I'm talking about was the diversification of mobility, and mobility, demands for mobility is but the different types of mobility are becoming more and more important to people. So whereas 40 years ago everything was car oriented, whereas now there's a lot more demand for walkability and bikeability of the town, and that has implications on how we design our roads, how we prioritize that in our zoning or development planning. I think it's a good thing, but it's definitely a change from where we were.
Got people to move from point A to point B. I remember my grandmother moved one time, lived to be real old, and wrote a story about it. Said at one point she moved from one point to another point to be closer to her son where he was living. It was 2 miles. And we used to laugh at how funny that was and all that sort of stuff. But because that was, but now we're back there. Everybody wants to be able to walk wherever they go and do all of that. So I don't think that's going to change in the near future anyway. That seems to be a trend. And how towns address that. What do you do with that? Let's go back over here.
Yeah, let's go for a positive one. We said sustainability under environmental. was a positive, net positive for a bunch of reasons. Not only, is it, infrastructure preservation, does it offer, town, recreational activity and that infrastructure as well, but also cultural alignment. One of the things that we were talking about is even folks who live here who might be perhaps, and again, this bleeds a little bit into the political, even folks who might be more conservative leaning. Folks I talk with really like the things that we're doing here in Apex because not only do they see decarbonization initiatives as positive for the local community in terms of whether it's reducing air pollution, but also the green when it comes to investment and attracting other folks who are like-minded in that way. So sustainability is what we saw as a net positive.
Any comments about sustainability being?
It could be a defining characteristic, which is what we look for. We're trying to set our place apart. So if this is a place that puts a stake in the ground and says, we're for sustainability and we're growing that sector.
Alan, what did your crowd say?
We talked about two different things. I don't know if it's necessarily on the positive side, but the realist side. So we've got an aging population here, lots of great things going on in the town of Apex, but we're finding that younger folks are not able to afford to live here, and so they're going to other areas. So their family may be here, but they're not able to find affordable housing here. And so there's kind of this missing middle gap of also, we looked at not only the demographic side, but we looked at the lifestyle trends. And so we've got a lot of things to do for our seniors. We've got a lot of things to do for our young at heart, young folks and children. But we don't have a lot of that 20, 25 up through 40, 50s. There's not much to do to engage them. And so we're finding that they're going outside of our community. So that's from the social aspect. And then we also tapped a little bit into the technological side as we see a lot of AI advancements and how that will create a lot of efficiencies, but may replace jobs. So what does that look like for our future?
Where are these people that can't afford to live here or nothing for them to do here? Where do they go?
Where do they go?
Yeah, if they're not here, where? Carrie?
Andrew. Raleigh.
To live, they go to live.
Oh, you mean if they have.
Yeah.
Or they move outside the city.
Living, they may work here, but they can't afford to live
here.
Yeah.
I thought you meant.
No, yeah.
What are they gonna do? Yeah, they go to Durham and Raleigh.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay, up front.
Yeah, so in the social, we talked about really more like population growth and the expected population growth, but we saw the implications as a positive for the workforce growth, as well as more people means more money to be put back into the local community. But connecting to that and the economic, the trend we saw really with inflation is also disposable income is possibly a lack of disposable income to spend, to put back into the community.
Yes. So we got people can come here, but do come here, they don't make enough money to put anything back, but it just barely living paycheck to paycheck, doing like that. So you think that's a trend? Okay. Well, let's do it. Perhaps maybe we see it manifesting itself lots of places around lots of different
I think it's a trend in general, not specific to Apex,
right,
but throughout.
Right. Back here.
I think all of our main topics have been touched upon already. The only one would be data security. We talked a little bit about that being an issue. It's definitely something that we have experienced as an issue in town, and one of the biggest implications workflow and how it really draws from what people need to be doing. It's now they're dealing with this data security.
That's one of the things that AI got that I'm board of advisors on. They talk about that not enough people talk about the security of the dam. It's just, you know, they just get all upset about that. That's what people should be paying attention to, and they're not. You saw some of the things that stuff. It's just unbelievable how fast everything's going and how big, you know, just unbelievable. I mean, it's cameras everywhere, people, everything, people logging in, everything. It's unbelievable. Okay, it's 5:32 and
Well, let me, excuse me, Charles. Let me, if you would, pass your papers around this way. We'd like to give those to the economic development folks with your notes. You'd pass it over here, pass everything over here around this table. You guys can pass anything up to Chris. We'll collect them and save them. We pass one around here. And now we're going to dinner, as I understand it. Are we going out for dinner or we're going to end it? What are we going to do?
Ellen?
We're in here. Candlelight, I mean, what's the deal? What's the deal?
Green beer.
New music. Is it a,
Green beer.
you know, keg and chug? I mean, that sounds pretty good, actually.
Eggs and kegs. You know, eggs and kegs.
That's
Clearly you're not a
That's called Sunday morning.
kegs and eggs. You guys don't know how to do that?
Yeah, we are. Great.
So we'll call it the recess, and then we'll take a group photo, and then dinner is ready. So then okay, we'll do the group photo in here. It's down with our comm team. Can I take our photo?
This is our group right here.
One a day.
Over here.
My trees. Next take back.
That's right.
year. But so far, we've talked about what economic development is. We're getting a sense of what it is not. We're going to get more into that. We've talked about the economic dynamics that we see in APEX. We've also talked about these future trends that we need to be continually aware of. This session sort of culminates in how do we make it work? Making it work here in APEX in terms of how our office is structured, who our partners are. It's really like this. Our team and leadership. We're going to look at something called the triple helix, which Charles just made up. I don't know where it comes from. We're going to look at that. He'll talk about that for about 45 minutes, and that'll be great. We're going to look at the traded clusters that we think are of priority here. It'd be good to check that. But importantly, for the Economic Development Office, what's the program of work? What does the office actually do? What are our expectations of them? By the way, we really love this display over here. This is really cool. And there's some cool things happening. We also want to look at our regional presence, which is very distinctive, where we sit in this region, the Research Triangle region. Very advantageous. We'll take a look at our infrastructure. A lot of that is what we call economic product. You know, what kind of sites, what kind of infrastructure do we have? Water, sewer, wireless, all of that is sort of the product that we're selling. And then we'll look at how many groups look at return on investment for economic development. So to get into it, again, we've talked about economic development. We've talked about economic growth. But Charles and I are really tuned into this phrase right here, economic competitiveness. And if we look at this slide, it's really a one-page slide for a community economy of what economic development is. And we each have our own triggers, our own starting point, our hot button. When we hear the term economic, it's sort of like entrepreneurship. You hear that term, it evokes, it conjures up something. Imagine. Economic development is another one of those loaded terms. These different things to different people. But this is a one-pager that says economic competitiveness is really about having that skilled workforce, that quality of education. The physical infrastructure, as I mentioned, which in large part is what we're over-offering folks out. Quality of place, quality of life, sometimes overlooked in economic development strategies we see. But for a place like APEX, it's a key. It's a key distinguishing characteristic, quality of life. Supply of capital, someone mentioned that this morning as a part of economic development issues. How that supply of capital ties into the target industries is another opportunity. The cost of doing business and the cost of living to be here is a factor in economic competitiveness. Sometimes there's research and development. Charles mentioned the loss of $300 million to this region, to our research universities. But investment, research, and development can be a major stimulus for economic development, economic competitiveness. We summarize all of these factors with this one. This is the overwhelming defining characteristic, to use that term again. The way that leadership works, the way that leadership and governance proceed can make all the difference. Talking about the decision-making process and the ways in which past decisions have been made, which is something we can now celebrate. So how this leadership team drives this, helps guide this community into the future, it makes a higher difference. And if it doesn't work, the other factors don't work around that dot. So, and leadership, as we define, we've done a fair amount of leadership development work over the years. Where I live in Greensboro, there's the Center for Creative Leadership, started in 1970, the major global place. But we've done a lot of research in terms of what effective leadership is, what it means. When we look at leadership for APEX and the body sitting here, it's about group leadership. It's not about my own individual leadership development, which is also important, but it's about how we're performing as a team. And a high-performing team make timely decisions, manage information well, and measure progress. It's interesting for us to look at those posters back there because those posters have metrics attached to it. It's like we're going to build 5 of this, we're going to build 100 of this. That's a kind of measurement. So make timely decisions, manage information, measure progress. Here's where groups tend to get in trouble, right here. Lack of sharing commitments, working together, lack of trust, and managing conflict. That's where groups tend to get in trouble. The Democrats and Republicans we mentioned to you earlier, where we've worked, we focused them on these behaviors, these competencies of team leadership. And it's helped make a difference in terms of how we trust each other, how we work together. And finally, how savvy are we in talking with each other in a personally savvy, talking with our constituents, the community, and also navigating political dynamics. And Ed, you gave a pretty good prompt into that world, political dynamics and how it can affect us. So those are precise behaviors that we look at when we say leadership. We're going to talk about the triple helix. And Charles, if you could cut this down to 40 minutes, that'd be good.
Thank you, Dan. The triple helix is a term we came up with to simply say that communities, whether they are towns or cities or counties or states or nations, that if they can get the academic, industry, and business all heading in the same direction, they'll win. And I often joke, say we economic developers came up with the term so you'd all think we're smarter than we are. Sounds real good. And then I found out there is such thing as a Triple Helix Association. It's an academic association. It's international. And I've been involved with that over the years, and I've been fortunate enough to speak internationally on Triple Helix approach to economic development. 2 of the places I spoke the first was the U.S. State Department gave me an opportunity. I like to say asked me to go, like, well, how they ask you? Okay, this is kind of cool. But anyway, the U.S. State Department gave me an opportunity to go to Thailand to speak on economic development, specifically on this subject. And I talked in 3 cities, to groups as large as 2,500 and as small as 25 through those places. And the reason the U.S. State Department wanted us to go was at that time, they were trying to form the Southeast organization, Southeast nations together, kind of like the EU, but not like that. But it was in Thailand, I learned we've had one of the longest treaties that our country has had with anybody. They're a nation that's never been colonized in that part of the world, and they were our friends. And so the Department of the State Department was sending all sorts of folks over there to talk to them how you're going to compete in this new environment you're about to find yourself. Anyway, after it's very hard to do because if you think about business's purpose is to make a profit in a capitalist system, which we have, which I like, which has raised more people out of poverty than any other system. But a capitalist system, a business in a capitalist system has one purpose, and that is to make a profit. Make the community better, take care of the workers, not do it. I mean, if you can take care, if that helps make a profit, yes. If it doesn't, no. Purpose is to make a profit. That's business purpose. Government purpose is to make sure everybody plays fair, the rule of law, but anyway, the rule of law and the regulations that go with all that to make sure that everything functions, that the water flows, that all that sort of government. Academic, well, their function is to think and to train and to teach and to look at what's coming next and prepare and all like that. Well, how does each one of those think about the other one? Well, business doesn't like anybody. And the academics over there doing nothing but contemplating the navel. There's no worth of anything. They don't do anything. The government just needs to get out of my way. And what does the government think? All they want to do is, I heard somebody the other day said, well, all he wants is for business. And so, that's something to get government, and that all that sort of stuff. And academics, they say, oh yeah, okay. They just don't play in those spaces. So there are three different mindsets, three different cultures, three different ways of doing things, totally different. But if you can get those three to say, that's where we are going, you'll win. And the research triangle, to a large part, has done that. The universities, the community colleges, the businesses, the governments, all have said, this is where we want to go. And you can, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, it's a very successful region and all of that. Well, anyway, when you're making this talk and everything in Thailand, they wanted to know, that question they asked the period afterwards were, who made you do it? I mean, not who made you do it. The question, that's one of Russia. The question in Thailand said, which is the most important? Which of these three is the most important? And so they're all equally important. I mean, if you get 2 out of 3 working, that's not going to work. So they're all important. 6 months later, after I was in Thailand, I got a call from Russian Federation of Regional Universities. They wanted me to come there and give a talk. And I thought it was somebody like Jacques calling me, just pulling my leg, but they did, and it was I spoke to it was the chancellors of 35 regional universities. They were not the Carolinas, the States, the Dukes. They were the East Carolinas, the UNC Wilmingtons, the Appalachians of that nation. And when he got through with that, that was just one talk to that one group. When we got through with it, they said, who made you do it? So I mean that was their thought. And I thought, isn't that something? This different culture, different way of thinking, but both of them recognized that you needed to do it. That if a community wants to be successful, that will be in the mix. And to a large part, you have been successful because you're part of linchpin, an important part of what is known as the Research Triangle region. And the Research Triangle region does that. That's the triple helix. And Dan and I probably do we need to put that in there, and we need to do that, but it is important. And you won't believe that. I mean, some places that they just don't do that. They just don't do it. But I'm thinking that in Wake County with Kevin Howell, Chancellor Howell, I mean, he is definitely a player. I mean, he is there. I mean, Tom White, who works for NC State University, is on Joanna's speed dial. I mean, she calls, he comes. And at one point, well, there still is, there's an organization with the UNC system called the Economic Transformation Council. The Economic Transformation Council has a person from each of the 17 universities that sits on that council. And the reason it was started was because economic development practitioners could not find the experts in the universities they needed, because universities are silos. It's not that the chemistry department doesn't know what the political science department's doing. It's the large molecules don't know what the small molecules are doing. I mean, they got silos everywhere. And so if you're trying to navigate that and saying, I need to find an expert to go call on this company with me that we're trying to recruit, and how do you find them? And the first approach is a real life story. We had a client one time that was looking for, they wanted to have a plant, and they needed to know what we had in our universities about experts in the field of monoclonal antibodies as related to female breast cancer. But it took me 2 weeks to learn how to say that, and I had no idea. And then to wade through that and try to find out who, where, how, all that was just very difficult. So so the universities bought into that, that economic development is important, and we need to do that. So the Economic Transformation Council were created, and if you get the business and the academia, all of them do that. So any questions about that? And what does that mean for Apex? I mean, who do you team with? Where do you go? How do you do that? Do you just make sure at some other level that people are doing that? And do you work with that, or does it matter, or you just, any comments, questions about any of that? Either you're really, really bored with what I said, or I did a really, really good job.
And so like, yeah, in my head, I can draw a triangle and see how governments, influences business and academia and vice versa. But practically, right, given the trends that we just talked about, like what does that mean for us, right? Yes, we are engaged with our partners, other municipalities. We lay the groundwork for, business rules. We are in an area where we have a lot of academia that's feeding into the system. So how do we either, make better use of that, like if we're missing opportunities, or do we see things happening that we should get in front of? Like, I'm kind of struggling with taking this theory and making it real.
The hardest part of that is how you get industry at the table, business and industry. You used to be able to, you have to find a common ground. That's today probably is workforce, because that's what they all need. But you have to find out what to do that, and how to do that. And the way we did it, the way it has been done in the past, is that you invite those leaders. You say, who are the business leaders in APEX? Who are the large employ the most, those people have the most impact? Who are they? Who are the business leaders? Give me one.
Dell.
Who?
Dell Solutions.
Dell. Okay, so whoever is running Dell here needs to team with, I don't know whether it would be Kevin or somebody at the university level or the community college level, Scott Rawls or somebody, or maybe both of them. And then who is the so we got academia and business, and who's the governor? Is it the mayor? Is it Joanna? But somebody, and they just need to meet on have a regular basis. Let's have coffee monthly. Let's do this. Let's see what we can do. What do you need, academic? What do you need from us? And all of that. So it's collaboration. It's just working together. And here's what we want to do. And Apex has got very well laid out plans. You know what you want to do. What do you need from us to help us do this? And they may say, well, here's what we want to do. What do you need? So in other words, it's just relationships, and all the AI, all that sort of stuff, but it's still relationships. It's still eyeball to eyeball, one-on-one. That's still very, very important in my view. And remember, you can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to be there. So you got to show up. So that's the way I would say do it. And when we did it, we put together our strategy involved all this. Jim Hunt was the chair of it. Ann Goodnight was co-chair 1 year. And then Molly Broad, who was the president of the university system, Jim Measler, who was the chancellor at Carolina, Ann Cohan, who was the president of Duke University, and Mary Ann Fox, who was the chancellor of NC State. They were all part of the team also. And so it wasn't, it was the top level that did that. It wasn't some underling, reported to. It was the top level. And that's top down rather than bottom up. And there are times when bottom up works and there are times when top down works. And I think this is a top down. But I think you just got to be intentional on bringing these people, everybody together. Somebody got to do it. But it's if somebody does it, it could be anybody that leads that, because all three are important.
I was just going to say, I don't know if this helps answer, and I don't know what it means or where we're going. But I'm just going to say one of the best outcomes of this triple helix, looking backward in the 80s, and then has paid dividends for 3 decades now, maybe close to 4, is when government, industry, and academia got together at the state level, especially focused here in the Research Triangle Park. That's where the North Carolina Biotechnology Center sprung out of, as seeing the need for not only, government to increase tax base, as an example, academia for, hey, where are our students going to go, and industry for how can we, plant roots and make profit. And so, that is an example, I think, one of my favorite examples.
One of them, 40-some years ago is when that happened. And North Carolina at the time had no life sciences to amount to anything. And now we're in the top 3. We're in the same breath of San Francisco Bay Area, Boston Route 128, and Research Triangle. Or to say North Carolina, but if you just counted what was in the Research Triangle, we'd still be 3rd. So, but anyway, but that's a great example. I mean, that was intentional.
Yes, that's all I was gonna say. Is they've got offices not only obviously at the large headquarters in RTP, but you've got then regional folks who are dedicated to 6 or 7 sub-regions within the state.
Yeah.
And then Charles, can I give 2 quick examples locally in Apex? Sure. So the 3 of those organizations show up in 2 places. One is Launch Apex. So you've got our businesses, wannabe businesses. You've got academia, because we've got Wake Tech is the facilitator and the trainer for that. And then, of course, government, we've got the town that's in our involvement in that program. So that's a real live triple helix through our Launch Apex program. The other one is when we make calls on existing industry. So we've got, that's the government again, calling on our existing industry as part of our outreach program. A lot of times we will invite some of our partners from the industrial extension program at NC State to come with us. And they bring in that academia to the table. So we're doing this locally, scale and size appropriate in the community. So that might be an example.
Industrial Extension Service is a great, and Dan used to work with them. That's a great example. I mean, you got government and you're calling on business. So what does business see? Well, here's government and academia here to answer my questions, see what I can do to help. And so that's a great example.
Yeah, I was going to kind of mention what you said. When did you start seeing the shift in talk about our level of education? And then we saw this gap where you had these high school students saying, hey, I don't want to go to the university. The trades and then community colleges. Where did you see that shift?
I don't know. I don't know that, Mayor, but it's a good question. Back in the 50s, we had industrial training schools, and then in the 60s, they started community colleges, and we have 58 of them around the state, and they are wonderful. They're great. They're wonderful. But somehow or another, it became I see it rapidly escalating in my view, and this is my opinion, may not be Dan's, may not be anybody else, but I see in our nation the demonization of higher education. It's saying that we don't need that. Just throw it away. Just go away. And I think that's a huge mistake. But I do think everybody doesn't need to go to 4-year college. We don't need. I gave a talk one time. It was actually to it was in Wake County. It was to the superintendent's what do you call it? He called it some business breakfast or something he had. And it was supposed to be something that brought the academics of the K-12 education and the businesses together for a breakfast and have a talk. And I was asked to speak at it one time. Well, there was probably about 90% academic and educators and 10% businesses. But I don't know if the speech was worth a hoot, but the title was great, I thought. It was the Elizabethan sonnet versus Tig, Stick, and Mig. Everybody knows Elizabethan sonnet. 14 lines, all that, and all the educators knew that, but none of them, I don't think, but that 3 or 4 knew what. There's about 400 people in the room knew what Tig, Stick, and Mig was. If you don't say, but if you know, raise your hand what Tig, Stick, and Mig is. Now tell them, like it. Welding, types of welding. So I mean, so what are we teaching? So it's both and, in my view, not either or. So it's be really cool if you welders could do some Elizabethan science work.
If you don't mind me rounding, I was, of course, I'm now really myopic now when I'm talking about college. I just happens to be the example that's on my mind. But I was going to say, to your point, that's actually a main driver of what they do is workforce development, because a lot of times in these laboratories or these clean rooms, you don't need somebody with a PhD. You don't need somebody with a master's degree in whatever. You need somebody with 2 years associates training. And then, they're making pretty good money, and they're, working in biotech. But I think it's our community colleges.
Well, there are specifics. Joanna was starting to mention some. Some of it's branding in terms of what Apex can say because of where we are. Our public university system, 17 campuses, each one has economic development as a pillar of their strategic plan. That's the first kind of real positive indicator that these universities are there not just to be behind their isolated ivy-covered walls, but they're really extending themselves as public universities to the public economy and to communities. But there are specific programs. When you work on downtown innovation, NC State and through their arts college, they will come out and help actually with design of downtown areas. The Small Business Technology Development Center is a tangible resource and it's all university based for hands-on small business development. Community College has a small business center. And finally, NC State has things like industry expansion solutions for some of the clusters that may be emerging in industries, that may be emerging in APEC. There's a number of tangible examples of actual services that the universities provide. Finding that person inside the university to help navigate, like Tom White at NC State, is the key. And to let Tom White know, this is our strategic plan for economic development, Tom. How can NC State help us? So I think there are a number of opportunities for Apex because of where we sit among all these universities. The private's going to be too. Duke is helpful in this arena as well. But let's talk about what we know as clusters. And is this an unfamiliar term to you guys, cluster? Target industries or clusters? This really emerged about 25 years ago. Research Triangle region was one of the first to introduce this. Clusters are actually comprised. If you have an industry that's a traded industry inside, it is comprised of all of these support areas. Everything from education, government services, specialized like financial, accounting services, suppliers market. So it's more than just an industry. It's how that industry is supported. And that's what we have here. It is manifested here. It's a mature practice here that Apex can tap into as it starts to look at, and here's the advanced.
Stop it, Dan. I got to say that. Dan say I'm getting off. We're going to run out of time now. Traded clusters. You got that term, traded clusters. It asks you, what a traded cluster is. Now, everybody said yes. You know what a cluster is. Do you know what the word traded means? They say traded cluster. You have two kind of clusters. You have non-traded clusters and traded clusters. So what's a traded cluster? So we're going to teach you something else. A traded cluster is something that's done here, but the money for it comes from somewhere else, like Dell. What does Dell make?
Storage systems, storage systems, technology storage systems.
Technology storage systems. Do they just sell those in APEC?
No, globally.
Sell them globally. So they make them here, they ship them off, and the money comes back here. That's traded cluster. Anything that you do here that goes out, but the money comes back, that's traded. That's what you want. That's what builds wealth. If you have non-traded clusters, very, very important. My barber is a non-traded cluster. Not many people drive to Sanford, North Carolina to get their haircut. Actually, I do it in Pittsburgh. But I guess that is a traded cluster. That's a local thing. Whatever you do locally, and that's not any money coming from outside. So if you just had non-traded businesses or non-traded clusters, in a little while in the capitalist system, you people will own everything. I mean, that's just the way that would work. So what you want is You want a mix, obviously, you needed non-traded clusters as well as traded clusters, but what you focus on is traded clusters. So we just use that term and, anyway, now you know.
But a lot of the non-traded small businesses, incredibly important to the creative economy that you're building. So you really can't ignore them or walk past them, incredibly important. But the traded clusters, there's a real sort of multiplier effect that can take place there. This is what we picked up, and you guys can comment on this. Advanced manufacturing, and that's, there's some examples there that are here. When you think of Apex, do you think of manufacturing? You know, is Apex known as a manufacturing center?
What percentage of the workforce is in manufacturing?
24%.
Really?
24%?
Yeah, that's heavy.
Maybe that's not right. Maybe that's the goal.
State average now is about 12%. It used to be the state average used to be.
That's not right.
The state average
That's not right.
used to
Sorry.
be 27%, and we had the highest percentage of workforce in manufacturing than any state in the union. And people say, oh, no, that can't be. But if you look at the industries we had, were all labor intensive, textiles, furniture, and all like that. Now we have about 10 or 12%. And there are some manufacturing, the high in manufacturing is around 35%. Or 30, some of the counties still in 30 to 35%. I would guess you'd be 10, 9, something.
Okay, check it, but,
Yeah, that'd be great.
what'd you say?
Yeah, so we just did an existing conditions report for our comprehensive.
Okay.
So talking about resident industries, not where people are employed.
Yeah.
So for manufacturing, it's 6.5%.
Okay.
What is it? How much?
6.5. Yeah.
Professional technical.
Yeah.
16.
It's another one of those choices in terms of what do we want Apex to be? Manufacturing and these industry clusters are also advancing with technology and also sustainability, ecological awareness, let's say. But you have some examples that we picked up, and you've already talked about Dell Technologies being here, life sciences, clean tech. So the question is going to be, are these clusters positioned for future growth? And as you're thinking about your own strategic plan, your own plan of work for economic development, are these clusters that, are we making good choices on what to stand behind, what to recruit, what to support? These look good to us, but it's always a matter of getting inside that industry and figuring out what their trends are. Are they actually growing? But you have some resources there. So additional thoughts in terms of training and target clusters, Charles, I think you covered it, but I think there's some definite decisions as you plan. So we're going to finish up here by talking about how to make this work, how to make it work through the teams, through their program of work, and really asking you, and just a profile, what's really needed next for economic development. But we have some rather glossy pictures here. Full color. And making it work the team. And their bio descriptions and role descriptions for each person, and you introduce yourselves already today. But as we looked on the website, this is helpful. And by the way, this is a pretty robust office. That, you know, there's real good role definition, role and responsibility definition among that team. So as a visitor looking at this, that's encouraging, and what the areas of focus are. And the purpose statement is retention and recruitment, position Apex, grow business industry, and importantly, small business and entrepreneurship. So pretty clear, succinct purpose that leads to a program of work. This is the org chart. So I think we had a good sense of that today when you introduce yourself. It's very good to line out here, you know, for Colleen especially, what your key responsibility areas are. Keep that in front of folks. It shows up back here with things like the poster, you know, how the results are obtained. But from our standpoint, this is quite well presented on your website. Talk about, we have referred several times, the Research Triangle Regional Partnership as a key regional presence. Charles was CEO and worked a great deal in terms of advancing that region. You have to ask yourself all the time, are we getting the attention that we need? Or do we have close enough relations with the regional folks, along with EDP and C? So how's that working, Joe, with RGRP?
I'm sorry. I was reading. I didn't listen to what you
Good
said.
working relationship with RGRP and EDP and C and all those,
Yes.
so that those partners
Yes, very
expand
strong. Yes.
what you
And-
can do.
And with Wake County Economic Development
Yeah.
as well.
This is largely a marketing organization now. They're really trying to bring businesses here. So in terms of this office, there's the human infrastructure, the team that we've looked at. And the team is also expanded by the partnerships and the collaboration within the whole town, across town government. And then what the team is really marketing is this sort of infrastructure, this sort of product, land available buildings, infrastructure, business climate, which is a real positive, workforce, quality of place, which is a real positive. Anything else that's not listed there that you're really marketing in terms of APEX? I would think this is a key one, right? So you're really selling a product in terms of economic development, which is APEX. You're getting marketing assistance, as we've mentioned. The state does a lot of trade shows and trips, and the staff here can tag onto those as they see fit. There's a regional presence that we've also mentioned. Wake County Economic Development Commission is a key partner, prosperity zone. So, and then in the county, in the city, they're partners in terms of trade shows and tours and sites. So the team can really tap into added resources. This is a time-consuming part right here. To actually try to attract an industry, a business, a company, very time-consuming. Takes a lot of work. It's like this prospect process, from generating leads, to responding to it, all the way to negotiating and getting a decision on some organization to locate here. That's a lot of work. So this team, in terms of their plan of work, in terms of retaining businesses that are here, I'll get at that right now. This is what's meant by business retention. We don't want to lose those great businesses that are here. So in terms of retaining, we want to make calls on them and find out what's important to them, what's keeping them up at night. If there's a corporate headquarter visit, we want to be there for that. If there's a brick and mortar expansion, we want to be part of that. So retaining business is a time-consuming activity. Understanding the companies that are here, their needs. You have some partners who can help, like NC State, community college, etc. But it's a big time factor. That along with prospecting. So this is trying to get something new. This is taking care of what we have, as well as the entrepreneurship and small business. It's a big part of their plan of work. Any question on that? That pretty much describe your activities. Okay.
One thing on the recruitment aspect of it, trying to get somebody else to come here. Not many companies wake up and say, I want to put a facility in APEC. What they'll say is, I want to put a facility in the United States. Well, I need a facility somewhere in the world. Maybe they even narrowed it down, southeastern United States. But even if they just said North Carolina, there might be 10 places that would fit, or maybe more. But the recruitment is not a process of inclusion, it's a process of exclusion. They're looking for ways to kick you out. What they're looking for. If the website's not good, well, that's that one. They know what they're doing. Gone. And so, that if I can't get in touch with them, then gone. So it's so they're looking for ways to eliminate you, not to include you. So you need to, and I know the staff all knows this, but it's hard. But there's competition and everybody, and the companies can go, well, they want to, within their parameters, obviously. But anyway, so it's process of elimination.
And so as a plan of work, we also want to know how we're doing. We want to have measures and metrics of what's important to us. What's important to Apex in terms of how we are developing our economy. There, on the left-hand side, you see some samples of input measures. Input measures really are not metrics. The input measures are activities. It's the measures on the right-hand side that's important to Apex and how the economic development function works with town government to track what's meaningful to us, whether it's job growth or growth in tax base, or down here, diversified cluster growth, which could be interesting over time. So it's your metrics, how you track them, and your plan. Let's move all this forward in terms of planning Apex economic development. And I think Alan has already distributed this final little notes page. It's what's working. I want you to get together with your table partners again. That's it. Thank you, Alan. Your same three table partners. Take a look at this in terms of Apex economic development. It's a bit of a critical thinking activity, like a SWOT analysis. But we're looking at what's working, what's not working, and what's needed. And we're going to be especially interested in terms of what's needed. So take a few minutes, work together in your groups of three, then we'll ask you to report out on especially what's needed.
What's
Work can be a great time.
Yeah, that's true, that's what it is.
Look, seriously though, I think we have a solid governing body.
Yes.
Including
Mhm.
staff.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say leadership.
Go ahead.
Also, I think I work for the friendly. You know what I mean?
You're not screwed.
Support system.
You can report out on that. We're in a very business friendly area. A lot of high qualified workers, a lot of capital, financial services in the state. We have support system.
I think another thing that goes in my favor is that we've built a lot of very strategic partnerships. So just, with other economic development and state. We have a lot of people out there that if we need assistance, or if we need assistance on a project, or I'll give you a quick example. So we have a lot of good partnerships with service providers. So for example, engineers. So sometimes we'll have a company that say, we're hitting this site, we want to see some solar boards. I can call an engineer. Project, because we've had those partnerships, like with Beacon Development, and it's Gateway. So I think we have a lot of good strategic partnerships in the economic development. Whether it's, I would just say, I'd say partnerships.
So let's focus on the fun stuff, like what's happening. So from that perspective,
what's not working is the one thing I would say, it's in this, to the mayor's point, it's a lack of available large tracts of land for sale. Because the large tracts of land that we have in the economic development. Whereas Holly Springs had large tracts of land. Insurance companies had to go buy, and we still have that. We still have 200 acres for sale. And they didn't want to do a build to suit, a developer told me. They wanted to just go buy 200 acres, or go buy 100 acres, and that's, so that's, we don't have that. I think it's so lack of, and it's, and the important thing is for sale, because they just want to buy the dirt and do their own thing. They don't want, and that's.
Really neat.
Decision making.
Anything. The residency is not.
Oh, like, remember that? Oh, like a big ranch, like.
Yeah.
They were suing the town because they didn't want, like, the eminent domain.
Motivation, I think we also like enough motivation.
I think it's just
So negative.
All right. So I would just like to say.
Oh, I see, that's what we needed. I'm sorry, so that lack of, large, I'm gonna put that over to what's needed. So what's not working is some of the, because I will say that when national site location consultants that run a lot of these big projects, when they're looking at a market, like they don't look and watch like town council meetings. And when they see the public forum that goes on here,
Yes.
that is a huge draw to companies.
Yes.
Huge. So I get it that you want to get into a forum, but when they get up there and some people say some really nasty things about you all to council, and it is, and that sentiment, so it's back to people in like somebody in Chicago, which was a huge project, and they get to market, and they go, well, watch this town council meeting. The citizens there, they lost their mind. That's what they said. I know you want to give them but it's to the detriment of what we're trying to do. You're like, yeah, right. Yeah, you can't take it away with it, but it's.
I'm here to do whatever. Where I would wait
Loved it.
something just.
Loved it. It's just a different mindset.
I think about how many cars.
Okay, so,
Are we going to?
A lot of projects that are looking, but what happens is the developers that build buildings, I mean, ultimately they control it, so they're out there marketing them too. And so they're out there marketing to just anybody who will lease it, and we're trying to help them understand that we want to intentionally market it to an advanced manufacturer as opposed to another. But at the end of the day, nothing,
I put slash.
Some good narratives, yeah, good stories.
Yeah. Yeah, some testimonials from business.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Market conditions. I feel like this is the towards our anchor board, we're not accountable to.
And I'm stuck. I think the children's hospital has that. But the children's hospital. Currently seeing something else. Yes. These guys.
So that vertical integration of companies.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a more vertical integration of companies.
I think we have, water, sewer. Not really. Some of what's needed though, I would say.
Yes. And what to give me
The right commercial. We have some critical gaps. And I think that's really close.
See, I'm gonna say another thing that's working for us, I think, is our reputation. We actually, we have good reputation. And the business.
It's all that great.
That doesn't, it's the phrase never comes up in conversation. That's all I know
You end up like.
it doesn't come up in like development.
You know, yes. You never get to the conversation. You get like, based on the guys who are throwing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you guys are at 6,000.
Right. Well, and the thing too is that these companies usually, they don't come and bring like, they come and bring like one or two executives. Yeah. The executives support delivery. And then they're gonna hire all over. So it's, that's what I'm saying, is they're not concerned with affordable housing. They're only gonna send a couple executives here. Executives are gonna be making plenty of money to live in Apex. Then they're gonna hire all over. So, like, a local might mean Apex, Cary, Holly Springs, but in this, because that's the workforce, it's a 30 mile. Okay. So that doesn't mean.
I use like in company already. Yeah. I focus on, I don't think you're so, I mean, I don't the income is form, but if you have the right.
Well, we do. We just don't have them in the ratio of those companies versus the population is skewed. So, and when we're recruiting companies, we don't recruit people companies. You're recruiting companies, they're paying at least $100,000. That's what we're recruiting. So when we get projects from the state that says, oh, there's a manufacturer and they're gonna be paying $45,000 a year, we're just like, no, thanks. Because that's not, because they're not gonna, if they do build an Apex, they're not gonna, not one person that lives in Apex. They're gonna pull from like Angie and St. Other places. So when we're actively recruiting, our target is, we had a few of those people in here, the lower skill, medium skill, but majority of the ones we're recruiting actively are those higher end manufacturers, advanced, and those higher end salaries. Those people can actually afford it. So it's very intense, because the average manufacturing wage in Wake County is 72,000. The average, the average wage in Apex, would you say, median average wages, I think. Yeah, median household. I can't remember the wage, but the wage is up there too. Wages is up there. That might be. Yeah, that's. So we do have companies that are paying that, which is proportionate to the number of people that live here. Yeah, so that's why we do it. Yeah, so, yeah. And that's why distribution is not always something that we're thrilled about, because those wages aren't typically as high as a manufacturer. Advanced I think your else is not working.
Okay. Let's take a couple more minutes. Looks like most teams are about wrapped up.
Yeah. Yep.
In all seriousness, launch
We don't have here. Oh, I am, okay. You're more experienced.
But it's got high demand, like to the point where Joanne couldn't see it. It's a great product.
Now they've got drive.
Yeah, I think there's a lot.
Okay, I think we can start to get some summary out of this. Who would like to kick us off here? You can choose to start wherever you like. If you just want to say what's needed, that'd be fine. If you want to give us an example of how that tracked across all three areas, whatever you want to present. Maybe Alan, why don't you start with you guys back there, since we had some conversation.
So, I would say I had some issues with understanding like what's needed versus the gaps. It seemed to me that was a similar column. And so we needed to get some clarification on how that was different. And because in my opinion, they were kind of the same, but you thankfully explained that a little bit more. So one of our things that we felt like was working was being proactive, having our robust economic development team and their relationship building. We feel like what's also working is our downtown central business district with the expansion of the facade grant eligibility and trying to kind of move some of that out a little bit further than just downtown, the improvements to the parking, et cetera. What's not working or what we see as gaps is just needing more funding to be able to do more projects, but also related to land. And then one of the other gaps is as we continue to grow kind of the workforce, we also look at a lot of people now want to remote work. And so how is that impacting our business industry and just downtown businesses in general? And so what we said was needed was a prioritization of existing or available parcels or redevelopment of parcels, favorable zoning regulations related to business recruitment and retention, and then kind of growing the mindset and understanding around the live, work anywhere concept, and wanting to have a better targeted audience for that, but also create a better understanding for what that means and how that would play into this equation.
RTI did a white paper not too long ago, identifying the professions that are more likely to be live anywhere, work anywhere. You know, consulting engineers is an example, but you could live here literally and work across the globe. So that might be something to factor in, that live anywhere, work anywhere professional. But great. You guys add to that?
Sure. So a lot of similarities. What's working, we said we're in a fantastic location. We've got access to highly educated population, dedicated economic development team. From our perspective, their support of small businesses, especially working, and the downtown, you know, it attracts people and we're supportive of it. Also working well, availability of water and sewer, as well as other infrastructure investments. So gaps, that there is a little bit of a mismatch, it seems, maybe between the availability of higher level professional jobs in Apex and who lives here, and then the availability of housing for kind of the incomes, the jobs that are on. So it's like they both need more affordable housing and maybe more professional. Need more money, no, I need more money.
Come on, Randy, and show me.
Working them.
We talked about having a little bit, maybe not a major attraction, but a minor attraction, to be like an external
That's a great-
draw.
Yeah, that's great.
That was Chris's idea, but we all agreed. More installed infrastructure, like pre-preparing more sites that work really well for cash corporate, whatever it's now, something else. And then patience, because we can always get residential to come, but if we prepare for non-residential, we have to be willing to wait for it. So just being able to invest and then wait.
What did you mean by external attraction?
Like a venue, minor league baseball.
Amphitheater.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Ferris wheel.
Actually, interesting people work on all there now.
Big eye.
There you go.
We are the peak of go.
Space needle.
Here's an external attraction in Wilkes. Everybody said it, everybody knew. So,
Thanks very much. We'll just go around the table. So
Okay. So, very similar to a lot of what everybody said. So staffing, existing staffing, not just in economic development, but overall within the town. The body of work is diverse. It includes industry and small business, marketing, communications, tourism development, our existing relationships with our developers and partners on our projects and sites, the quality of life, schools, education, town budgeting for our department, that they prioritize economic development within that. Things that aren't what kind of gaps is, like, we have an extremely low vacancy rate for all kinds of types, specifically small business. There's a low vacancy rate, which is a great problem to have, except when you have people who want to come here and can't find a place to come. So it's a gap. We need more commercial space. Affordability, obviously, is sort of not working because, again, We're in the same thing. And then sources of funding for different types of businesses. Then what's needed, so space, land sites, future planning for infrastructure. So making sure that those sites are ready to go when the opportunities arise. I think we talked about Holly Springs earlier, and that was a 20-year project of like, build it and they will come kind of a process. So kind of like we need to be a little bit forward thinking in that infrastructure area. Consider maybe incubator space for micro manufacturers that would, you know, have opportunity to come in at a low interest kind of rate and then move out and occupy market rate spaces. So growing your own industries locally, that idea. And then capitalize on stewardship and sustainability as a potential opportunity.
Say that last part again, capitalize on stewardship.
And sustainability as like an industry like partner, because we seem to have a lot of interest in that, whether it's biotech or just green, environmental, things like that.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, this team.
Joanna. A lot of the same things. I'll just touch on the ones that weren't already mentioned. We thought what's working was leadership, both at the elected body and the staff, business-friendly environment, and then reputation. Apex does have a good reputation. I mean, I know we there's a lot of pain points internally, but we actually have a very good reputation to the outside world in a lot of ways. That's, you know, what I hear. What's not working, speaking of, this could hurt our reputation, is negative resident activism. That's something that we're dealing with. Did anybody hear what I said? Does that make sense? Okay. Tell the truth. Okay. And then the other thing that's not working, or gap we see sometimes, is that lack of funding capital for small business. You know, there's incentive programs for large business, but really no incentives and, you know, access to easy and quick access to funding versus small business needs. And then what's needed? Large tracts of land available for sale. This is why Holly Springs has a lot of life science that we don't, because they had hundreds of acres of land for sale. Most of our land is tied up in developer build to suit. And so we don't have large tracts of land just available, the dirt for sale. They'll help you develop it, but you're not going to own it. And so that's why our other neighboring communities have had some of these larger life science projects, because they had 100 acres, 200 acres for sale. And we just didn't. So that's what's needed if we want to attract that kind of thing. And then we talked about doing what's needed, just doing more testimonials and things from businesses as part of our marketing strategies. And then talked about getting more vertical integration of companies. So like children's as an example. So what's going to flow from there, but looking at our other large industry and thinking, you know, what's the vertical integration of suppliers for those industries, and how we can bring in more of those.
It's really building those clusters. Right?
Yeah.
We have some you know, one-off businesses, but we don't really have clusters.
Yeah.
Built around.
Yeah.
What are the negative activism?
Well, you know,
NIMBYism can go too far.
it's just, you know, just
Angry.
well, yeah, we of course we want to have public input, and sometimes
That's specific.
yeah, no, just you know, it's just if it starts to go off the rails,
yeah,
that's not always a great thing.
We've had several large projects that got people excited, put it that way. But you know what Jenna was saying is, you know, as prospective tenants, you know, or businesses come to check us out, and they kind of want to show on TV, right? Like having that kind of negativity, like showing up in council sessions, is not a selling approach.
Yeah. Sometimes it's misunderstanding. The residents, they didn't get the correct information. They thought, you know, something wasn't right, or some shitty deals. Actually, there were none of those things. But they would, you know, speak at a public forum, and it's
because of this misinformation, it can put Apex in a bad place for future business. If they think that's bad, why we would come here? Just a example like that.
Great, thanks. Two more reports, and then we'll start to close out.
Well, we have a lot of the same things that the other folks have said. We focused on one of our big positives and also something we can work on is the idea of diversity of various types of clusters of businesses. And the thing that we really kind of zoned in on is if you look at a bunch of communities that have died or have dwindled, think Detroit with, Motown, you've got Gary, Indiana Steel Company that just, you have one industry that leaves, that community dies. And you can look as far south as Robinson County where you had cotton, go as far west as or east as Wilson where you had tobacco that pulled out. You start to lose businesses, or even as far north as when you go to Henderson and places like that. So our advantage is that we have a diversity of businesses, and our focus should be on maintaining a diversity of businesses. But as we started talking about that, one of the things that we really were trying to get an idea of is Apex has had a resiliency for over 150 years of being able to rebound from various economic downturns that many other communities haven't. And identifying what that is something that, we don't have an answer. We kept coming up with a bunch of reasons, whether it's our location, whether it's our educational base, whether it's the staff that we have working economic development or just town leadership. It's a bunch of things, but being able to figure out what it is that's making us resilient, that's been able to help us overcome a lot of these economic downturns, has got to be something that's a focus for us. And in dealing with that, we also recognize that if we create growth, we're going to get a little bit of that residential resistance, which is folks don't like growth. So it's a messaging problem for us to figure out how do we best explain the concept of these are positive aspects and getting folks used to that idea of change. So those are the things that in addition to all the things you've kind of come up with, this kind of became our central nugget, which is we can build great clusters. We've got the teamwork to do that. We can create a diverse enough economic base to survive downturns, which is, I think, our key. But that means that we've got to figure out how we're going to do our messaging to make sure that we convince the residents here that that change isn't bad, that we build in the infrastructure necessary to support that sort of growth. So whether that's roadway, sewers, land, spacing, addressing the affordability issues so that we can attract the right workers. But it's a multiple focus issue that's going to require multiple attack points over a sustained period of time in order to make it happen.
Things are really going well, but how to prepare for what's next, and not only prepare, get the messaging out in terms of what's next. Okay. Final group, anything more to add?
Yeah, I really like a lot of things that have been said. Ours was a bit more, I'd say, tangible based. So like, I'm not going to repeat the things that's talked about earlier. But one of the things that I think hasn't been mentioned yet is some of the proactive decision making regarding economic development, or at the very least anticipating, seeing some of the early indicators, and then capturing the opportunity. And I'd say that what we talked about was Apex Gateway and our Chatham County strategy, where it's no rooftops, entirely focused on economic development. And that's one of the things that's working among all the other great things that have been said. Town government and staff is something that I put on the list that they just said, oh, shucks, thanks. But I'd say one of the couple of things I didn't hear or haven't heard so far, one that both Randy and Sean could speak to more specifically, but concept to delivery delays. But the one that I wanted to talk about, touch just a little bit on what Shannon was talking about, which is And maybe this is a slightly different angle, which is employment retention. So I really like what Shannon said about, you've got folks who work here who don't have a place to live. You've got people who live here who don't have a place to work. And perhaps there's another layer, and I don't know if it's the nexus of those two things, but and we didn't have we talked, and I even said to Randy, I don't even know, if the genie came and handed you the magic wand, what you would wish it to do other than just fix it, which is how to get more people who live here working here, because that in itself, not only you're more committed to the place that you live, work, and play, it reduces traffic. And it also then reduces traffic coming into town as well. And then what's needed, money, time, the big one. But further exploration of retention and expansion. Something that Randy and Sean were talking about. State budget would be great, and I joked, but only half, because that offers the stability that allows us, that is the springboard for us to move forward. But then another is expanding Launch Apex that I'm excited about. And one of the things that Randy was talking about is exploring what would that tier 2 look like. So not only expanding the base of just, and it is a great problem to have, right? As you talk about municipalities or counties who love to have this kind of issue where we had fewer seats than applicants for our program. And so not only is it that one-on-one level, but also how about the folks who have already completed it and might be ready to enhance their business model.
Okay. Go ahead. Let's go. Okay. He's your spokesman.
Yeah.
With not a lot of time, a lot of substance. So if you would, again, pass your papers this way, let them end up here with Michelle. And Alan, if you got pass the word off, let them in the script. We'll make sure we collect those, and we'll start to close out. There are nuggets of strategy throughout this whole conversation right here. Nuggets of advancing good strategies that are underway and opening new pathways. So again, very simple. The final words from Charles and me is that whatever plan is put together, and this is a really nicely presented plan. This is a really nicely presented plan. If I want to know a lot about Apex without too many words, this is really helpful. So it all comes down to this, not just having a plan, but gaining champions for our cause. That's really what the messaging is about. That's what our vision is about. We have a vision for Apex. Come with us. And that includes some of those, would you say, negative advocates, negative contributors?
You can skip over that.
And this starts here. It starts with the leadership team that's here in terms of the vision, the connections, and a lot of demonstrating results. Joanna and I were having a conversation about Wayne County Development Alliance. What Wayne County has done, and we worked with them last year. What they've done so well, they tried to get investors, they tried to get champions with money, actually. But they were able to demonstrate results. They were able to demonstrate that site was built and that site is now being filled up. So demonstrating results is really key. Yogi says the other teams could make trouble for us if they win, and I guess, yes, Yogi, you're right. But with that, our thanks. Charles, you want to say something about ECU and evaluations and start to finalize? Did you get it?
We can do it. We can do it. We're supposed to have evaluations, but somehow I didn't get them in my email. So we can do it. I can send them out. I can distribute it.
You can email it.
I can distribute it out, and then we can take care of that. So
ECU, they used to let Dan and I do the evaluation, but we were putting them out before we were handing them out. So now they send them directly to whoever's hosting this, and apparently they didn't get to go out in time. But the only thing I would say is thank you very much for Joanna for allowing us to come and to meeting all of your staff and your elected officials and leaders. It's been really, really remarkable for me and Dan, I'm sure. The problems that Apex has are not, a lot of people will kill for those problems. Like one of the ones someone said that you don't, I mean, I think you did, Colin. We got businesses want to come in and got no vacant space. So nothing vacant. Yay. Right through a lot of North Carolina, that's not a problem that they have. And so you're doing a lot of things you historically have done things right. Obviously, it's a position Apex where it is. The mayor was saying at one point, Apex had a high crime rate, was not as desirable as it is today, but now it's, and as Joanna said, and you saw the list, it's okay, let's go, put me in, coach. And so it's a good place, and it's all a lot of attributed to the people in this room. But thank you for letting Dan and I come and talk to you today. So I hope it was beneficial for you. And if it wasn't, don't tell anybody.
Great job.
Yeah.
Dinner.
Yes. We will make sure, Mr. Mayor, that we get the certificates out to you all and also the evaluation forms. So you look for those two things to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're good.
All right. Yeah, we're good. Hearing none. Adjourn. Thank you.
So you get an A+ for timing because we're 15 minutes early.
Charles, don't tell me.